This base is community request, and after driving it for almost 7 weeks, I personally believe will cover 99% of the drivers out there. If you remember how excited I was with the R9, which I drove for 2 months and never felt short of power or force feedback detail coming from my all-time favorite SimuCube 2 Pro for competitive racing, I feel like the R12 is about to kill his little brother with those extra 3 Nm torque. If there is something I really like about Moza, is their willingness to listen to the community and not be afraid to produce something which can kill their own previous products. Because this is not completely new line and is basically R9 on steroids, I will try to very briefly bring you up to speed. This is basically direct drive wheel with servo motor offering 12 Nm peak torques fitted in very compact aluminum case with passive cooling. All Moza wheels are wirelessly connected through Bluetooth and powered through electromagnetic induction without spinning cables inside. Now, if you want to see full dissection of the base, I will share a link from Sim Racing Garage where Barry takes it apart and explain everything. I'm mostly interested about the driving experience, and as I've said, I use it for almost 7 weeks daily, and most of you already see it in action without knowing is the R12 because all my bases are hidden behind the monitors. So I had the time to create full opinion and we'll compare it with the other bases I have around. First, this is the best value for money on Moza DD bases line with $49.91 per Newton meter. In comparison, the R5 is $69.8 per Newton meter, the R9 is $52.1, $62.4 for the R16, and $57 per Newton meter for the R21. The only base on the market which can beat that value dollars per Newton meter is the VRS. So $5.99 for 12 Nm base is absolutely great achievement. The first question is, are those 12 Nm peak torques enough? And I will give you my personal opinion. Let's jump first on iRacing. One thing you have to understand is peak and holding torques are two different things, and it's very important on the gain settings to let some room and don't set any base on max power in the game. To understand what I mean, let me show you an example. If I set everything to max in the pit house and in the game, which in iRacing will be 12 Nm, you can see the force feedback reading quite well the anomalies of the track. But once we dive in long corner, the bar hit red, which means the base hit torques limits and cannot produce any of those effects at this moment. What I feel at this point is just resistance without feeling the load of the tires or the level of the grip. In iRacing, if we do few laps and hit that auto button, the sim will automatically set the gain limits and the force feedback will not clip the signal anymore. This option actually is very precise and manually I can get more than that. Now, after that adjustment, I can tell you scientifically what are the holding torques I'm getting, and my guess will be around 9 to 10 with some 12 spikes hitting some curbs, and as you can see on the footage, the force feedback feels strong. If I race competitively, that will be too much for me, and I will explain why. Don't take me wrong, I'm a big fan of high torques experiences, and in most of my onboards videos I use some crazy numbers and have tons of fun having to fight the base, but if I prepare seriously for competition, that much of power works against me. To perform lap after lap and repeat precise movements, I need to have my body as relaxed as possible, and high torques only bring tension. All I need is precise force feedback and not huge torques to throw me around. I drove the R9 in very competitive championship for 8 weeks, and those torques was absolutely enough for what I needed to feel. With the R12, those 3 extra Newton meters may sound a small difference, but is well noticeable and it can be a good workout with some cars. But that being said, if you have the R9 already, I don't think we'll worth the upgrade to R12, and I will explain why. Yes, the power difference is definitely noticeable, but if I compare those two to the R21, even if I use them on the same torques, with the same settings, the R21 will be way smoother. If I set the R21 to RoadFX 10, will still be smoother than those at RoadFX at 100%. I'm not sure if that comes from better encoder on the top of the Moza line base, or is the magnetic field created in the small form factor case. Just the R21 is a beast, not just from power, but is also a bit smoother. However, one fun fact I noticed for myself driving all the time different bases, big and small. After 40 minutes practice session, I totally forget I drive different DD, and my times are always the same depending on the effort I put into practice, and those differences in smoothness or speed are negligible and make difference for the first few minutes after swapping into the next one. With the R5, 9 and 12, I can feel the magnetic ripples, while force feedback reading the texture of the road a bit more harsh, but I personally won't consider that as bad feeling, and the wheel definitely feels alive. Of course, with settings we can minimize those ripples, but we will lose the texture of the surface and the beauty of the force feedback experience. That being said, this is my iRacing experience, and if I move to ACC or the original Assetto Corsa, the experience is way smoother with the same settings. At around 75 to 80% of gain, the force feedback is clipping in very rare occasions, only if I hit hard curbs, but in long corners the holding torque is very strong and have enough room for further details. Those magnetic ripples are smoother, and the vibration driving over the curbs feels very sweet. Automobilista 2 is also something in between those two titles, with similar amount of holding torques and good amount of road texture. As I've said, this is community request for 12 Nm base, which must be the sweet spot and cover wider range of drivers' preferences. It definitely gives good amount of workout, and for people who gonna get this as first direct drive, will feel like too much force on max settings. I'm used to those strong forces, driving 20 Nm and above bases for 5-6 years now, driving at least once per week with crazy force feedback for fun experience and content, but in normal drive I won't personally use the maximum of the R12 with certain cars. That being said, the R9 was my favorite base in 2022 for the price, but this one with that price is almost the perfect mid-range base. It is not as smooth as the R21 in the same settings, but it's half the price, and as I've said, every time I switch from Simulcube to SimMagic or Moza in 40-minute session, I totally forget I switch a base. They all have their own signature, of course, from force feedback point of view, but at the end of the day, they all give the details I need to drive the car on my own limits. One thing I was worried about was how this small case with passive cooling will manage the temperatures, as the R9 was getting hot with the 9 Nm, so I tested some extreme conditions, letting the wheel go as crazy for 20 minutes on aggressive temps management, and 25 degrees room temperature till the case get very hot, and I didn't felt any loss of power. So 2 hours drive on max torques won't be a problem, even if the case is very warm to touch, at least with the unit I'm testing here. So here are my final thoughts. When company listen the community, success is unavoidable. Yes, they're gonna kill their own products, and my favorite for the money R9 will be in trouble, and even the R16, which is 40% more expensive for 20% more power, but so will be all the other bases in that range. From my personal experience, this is the best choice for the money if you can't afford 1K and above for a base. As I've said before, only the VRS DD beats the Nm per dollar ratio, but it's €900 base and fights with the big bases out there. In the mid-range, the R12 is the new king in my opinion. If you already have the R9, I won't consider this as big upgrade, as the quality of the force feedback is the same and the only difference will be the strength. But if you are thinking which one to take as first DD into your setup, the little extra bucks are well worth, as even the cars like the McLaren GT4 on iRacing, which have the weakest force feedback, will be workout. Moza definitely have the best strategy on the sim market. Just ask the community what exactly they want and the success is guaranteed.